Good afternoon, everyone. It's approximately 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we're in league with my IG Live. We're going to be with Mark Nepo. I'm going to invite him on in just a second, but I'm sure you know who Mark Nepo is, but in case you don't, a poet and spiritual advisor who has taught in the fields of poetry and spirituality for over 40 years. He was named by Watkins Mind, Body, Spirit magazine as one of the 100 most spiritually influential living people. He was chosen as one of his own Super Soul 100, a group of inspired leaders using their gifts and voices to elevate humanity. Award-winning author of 22 books, 15 audio projects, and you know what? 20th anniversary edition of Mark's #1 New York Times bestseller, The Book of Awakening, which sold over 1 million copies, was again released this year. This is the 20th anniversary. Actually, Mark was going to be with us at Agape pre-COVID to be here, speak to the congregation, do a book signing, and obviously we can't do that because so Mark and I are about to have a conversation, and you're able to listen in. Hey, Mark, how are you?
Hey, good to see you. Wonderful to be with you.
Absolutely. You know, I guess the original plan was that you were actually going to be at Agape.
I know, and I wish we could hug.
Yeah, because we're part of the Hug Life.
Absolutely.
Hug Life. But this would be the next best thing, us having a conversation, and obviously that Book of Awakening, 20 years, huh? It's been a 20-year anniversary.
Oh my God, it's hard to believe. Really, 20 years since it was first published. My God, and I remember, I really originally wrote that as an effort to give back after my cancer journey. If I could just kind of put together a book of small doses of what matters, maybe it could be of help.
Right. You know what? For those people who don't know your story, can you give us a brief synopsis and some of the things that came out of it that led you to write the book?
Sure. Well, I'm 69. And, when I met people my age, when I was younger, I thought they were ancient. It doesn't seem that way now. In my 30s, my mid-30s, I was diagnosed with a rare form of lymphoma. And, everything, my life was turned upside down and inside out. And I went through about 3 years of the heat of that journey where I almost died, and obviously blessed to be here. And I think two things I could share, really at the heart of all that was, for me, I was blessed to have people from all traditions offer me some kind of healing and blessing and help. And I mean all traditions. I mean including atheists and scientists and Native Americans and Sufis and all kinds of wonderful people. And so, blessed to still be here, I was not and am still not wise enough to know what worked and what didn't. And from that point forward, I've been a student of all paths. And that's been at the heart of all my teaching, all my books, all my work, is to try to affirm and reveal that common center of all paths and uplift the unique gifts of each so that we can have things in our toolkit for times like now. And so that's how I wound up starting. I have a lot of people in my life who are in recovery and I saw, day books everywhere, really used. And so that's when it, occurred to me, wow, I wonder if I could fill that form to offer back.
Yeah, that's powerful. Now, one of the key words that you and I both love is the word surrender. And I think you put a big emphasis on that in your work, that at some level you had to surrender. Give us what you mean by that, because oftentimes people think surrender is just waving the white flag and giving up, but it's something totally different.
Well, surrender, yes, is not resignation, as you know. It really means cooperating with the essence of life. And a great way to understand this is in the Taoist tradition, the ancient Tao, which really just means the way.
Right.
You know, those ancient philosophers felt that the invisible forces of life were like an invisible river, and that every soul was like a little fish in that invisible river, and the whole purpose of will is to align with the current of that invisible stream of life, and that's surrender. You know, I've come to think of surrender as cooperating with truth as we meet it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I often embrace surrender along those same lines. And I also embrace it as we're actually yielding to the next stage of our own evolution, that there's something trying to happen that we can't even see yet. It's beyond our imagination, but we have to let go to it for it to become more conscious of itself as our life. So, as you've said, it's not resignation to a bad circumstance or the misunderstanding of the will of God. It's actually, I like the word alignment you use. You're coming into alignment with what is real,
Yes.
and something is trying to happen through you. And
And so much about letting go, as you mentioned. You know, one of the things I think all the way back to those times is, you know, I was so facing so many difficult passages and decisions, and whether to have surgery or not, or have chemo or not. Um, and I remember that there was a very unusual in the fall when I was struggling with this in the late 80s. There was an unusual, very heavy snowstorm right in the midst when all the trees were full of their color. And it brought, I mean, it brought 100-year-old trees down. I mean, we woke up and my God. And the great teaching to me from that, the gift of that storm was the trees would have survived if they had let go their leaves. Then the snow held on. And it was a hard, fast teaching to me that the only way through what I was facing was to let go, no matter how brilliant the trees came down, because they wouldn't let go.
right. Yeah, it's also like the essence of prayer. When we go into prayer, we have to let go of our own little idea of what we think should happen. We have to like totally let go and embrace a connection with the presence that has a desire for more life to express through us. But we have to let go of our little thinking, our littleness, our little perceptions, our little opinions. We have to let go of all of that to really come into harmony with the is that's trying to express. So letting go is it's a powerful technology even in and of itself. You know.
Yes, I love how you see that, how you phrase that. You know, I think we often, yeah, especially in the West, you know, we often we all pray when we're in trouble. We ask someone or something, oh please get me out of this. You know, I'll do better. And in this, you know, I have found I love the Hindu tradition where Ganesh or Ganesha is the deity, is the provider and remover of obstacles, which tells us that obstacles are teachers.
Yeah.
And what's in the way is the way, like it or not.
Absolutely. It brings out our hidden potential, even when we're screaming and trying to get around the obstacle or the challenge sometimes activates something within us we didn't even know was there until
Yeah.
the obstacle showed up.
And it's not to minimize how difficult it is when we're going through obstacles. You know, another thing that really connected for me back all those years with now, and you know, and I was surprised that when we started back in March to have to shelter in place and the pandemic was so upon us, I kept having these emotional echoes to when I was first diagnosed. And what I came understand was that, all those years ago, Michael, I went into a doctor's office and he sat me down and said, "You got a rare form of cancer." And I, was terrified. I was, oh my God, I thought, "You must have the wrong person. You've got the wrong, can you check the folder?" And
Denial.
you're right. And, but when I left the office that day, the door I had come through to keep that appointment was gone. There was no way back to life before that moment. And I feel like this is what humanity is facing now with the pandemic. The old world is gone. They're like it or not, we have to love each other forward. And with the old world gone, that's loss. And so I look around and I see parts of our society just stuck in the stages of grief. There are whole parts of our society stuck in denial. No, it's not gone. Let's party. No, it's gone. And the only thing that's going to happen if we don't accept and surrender and love is we're going to make each other sick.
Yes. No, I really like what you're saying. I've been telling people recently that this is a time of great tenderness.
Yeah.
That you go from 1619, when the first Africans were brought here to become slaves, all the way to COVID-19, fires running amok, allowing people to smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day just walking outside, the economy obviously being so unduly affected by the COVID-19 situation that we have to be tender with each other, because everyone is on edge. Psychically, we're all being affected by everything that's going on. And so we have to really have a deep level of compassion for ourselves, tenderness, compassion and tenderness for others, because we don't know what people are going through. We don't know what emotional edge they're on. So I've been inviting people to give each other a break, give each other the benefit of the doubt, have a level of patience to the best of one's ability. Because as you say, that there's no more normal. The old paradigm is dying. There's something new trying to be born that is beyond our imagination. And in order for us to surrender, in order for us to be a part of that, we have to surrender, we have to let go, so that we can actually help create something by design rather than by default.
Yes.
Defaulting back to our fears, our worries, our fight and flight reactions. So it's going to take a lot of work. And tenderness is very important, I think, right now.
I agree with you. And it brings to mind that, some of the ancient and perennial medicines, they're not abstract. They're real and they're important now. Like 2 of the oldest medicines that help us move into tenderness are holding and listening. And we need more than ever. And these aren't just abstract pie in the sky notions. These are real things. I mean, how do we, and it's a paradox in that we're socially distanced, but we need to hold each other more than ever. And that means listening. That means asking each other, what's this like for you? How did fear talk to you today? How did essence talk to you today? What's the most challenging thing today? And what was the most poignant revelation today that was right under your feet?
Right. No, I agree. I really like the leaning into listening that you're talking about, because with everything so intense, oftentimes people are holding on to their opinion and their point of view and their sense of rightness as a survival mechanism. But this is the time to like bracket that and actually listen to each other. And listening to each other doesn't mean agreeing, but it does mean being together and listening and hearing what another person's experience is, what they're growing through, so that we can make a shift in ourselves or offer something. But we can't offer anything if we're not listening to each other. We're just stuck in our same point of view. And then that doesn't create any sense of unity. It just creates the divisiveness that we're experiencing now, this great sense of polarity that is running amok. not only in our country politically, but throughout the entire world. You
It's
know,
throughout the world. And you know, and it's interesting that throughout history, you know, a few books ago, I one of my books was More Together Than Alone, which I had spent 13 years looking at the moments throughout cultures and history of when we worked well together and the lessons from that. And not surprisingly, there are long waves in history, you know, decades, centuries when we pushed each other away, and then long periods of time when we've come together. And so much comes back to that essential choice every day between love and fear. And when we come out of fear and we're stuck, as you say, in whatever it is, our feeling, our fear, our opinion, our generalization, our stereotype, well, then we wind up almost unconsciously. The only thing we seek knowledge that will confirm what we already know. And
right,
that's not education.
right. Yeah,
No, yeah, no, tell me what I don't know. No, thank God you're not me.
no, it's so true. It's like we want to confirm our own opinion and be right, and we think that that's going to be a buttress to protect us, our opinion and our rightness, but it's actually making us more rigid, and it's really our flexibility, our yielding nature that allows us to not only cope but also to thrive at a higher and higher frequency. And what you said about fear, I think is very important, because what I've noticed is that oftentimes fear is a bigger virus than COVID-19.
No, I agree completely.
The immune system becomes compromised, toxic chemicals flow through the body temple, the coherence of the brain dissolves, and based on the amplification of fear. And so I know a lot of the work that we do is seeking to alleviate people's fear so they can hear their heart. They can hear the presence. They can hear essence. They can be guided. They can have direction that moves them through the challenge in a much more graceful way. But fear itself is debilitating. Yeah.
It's debilitating. It's devastating. And you know, when I go back where my training ground about fear in my 30s during my cancer journey, I was terrified of everything. I had never been through anything life-threatening, and and what I learned, not through wisdom or choice, I exhausted my heart. I
Mm.
was on a scale of 1 to 10, everything I met was 15, you know, and and I couldn't keep it up, and I exhausted my heart, and it forced me to let things in and be more discerning. I had to say, okay, I'm facing this procedure. What is it? Is it really a 10? No, I don't want to do it. I'm afraid, but actually, okay, it's 6. Okay,
Mm.
that that allowed the other part of my heart to be freed up for other things, so that
Right.
all heart wasn't concentrated on fear. And I've learned that fear, and the traditions speak about this, fear gets its power from not looking. And and we go all the way back to when we're little kids, the proverbial, there's a boogeyman in the closet. And the longer I look, the bigger it gets, until, a kind grandparent or an aunt or uncle said, no, come on, let's look in there. And then, okay, and they hold your hand and you open it up and there's nothing there. But then this other thing happens. At first, when you look, it's totally dark. But as you stand there, it gets lighter. Well, the air in the closet hasn't changed. Our eyes have got accustomed to the dark. And this speaks to a quiet courage we have to help each other with, to face what we fear until what we think is total darkness starts to lighten. And then it can become our teacher.
Right, right, right. And then somewhere along the line, we realize that on a meta level, on a spiritual level, whatever we're afraid of, we're actually spiritually bigger than it. But when it has us, we think it's bigger than us. But a truth teaching is that the potential within us is bigger than the problem. Our potential is always bigger than the problem, but the fear mitigates our ability to see that. And
Yeah.
and so and so society that runs around trying to get rid of their fear rather than embracing it and seeing, oh yeah, I can see better. Everything that you just articulated, I think was quite profound. Yeah, yeah,
Well, you know, and fear, and this is also about letting go example. You know, during all that time, and this is all up for me because it so echoes where we are. That when I was going through all of that, that I had a vision where the Chinese poet from the Tang Dynasty, Tu Fu, visited me just once or twice in a dream, and one of them was
ah,
around fear. Yeah, one of them was around fear. I was so afraid. And in the dream, he was on a beach sitting cross-legged with a stick in the sand. Didn't pay any attention to me. And I ran over and I said, how do I block the fear? And he ignored me, which got me angry. And so I was like closer to him, more firm. I said, how do I block the fear? And without looking me, he raised the stick above him and he said, how does a tree block the wind? And with that, he disappeared. And, and I woke up. And of course, it blocked the wind. No, you let it through. And you know, all these years later, that has translated to me that fear is to be moved through, not obeyed.
yes,
Moved
yes,
through.
yes.
You know, if I ask my fear what I should do, it says, be more afraid. I thought you'd never ask. But I yeah, I need to ask you, and I need to ask, you know, Spirit, and I need to ask God, and I need to ask my loved ones and the strength of my heart, what should I do? Not my fear.
Right, right, yeah. Because once you let it run through you and you look at it that way, everything is energy. So the fact that you're observing the fear, then that energy changes, and it can become excitement, and then it becomes enthusiasm. But when we are resisting it and trying to make it go away or fight it, we amplify it and we amplify our connection with it. But as you're saying, based on this dream, which is very powerful, the trees don't block it or fight it at all. It just flows through.
It
Yeah,
flows through.
yeah, yeah. So, I saw your Book of Awakening, obviously, 20th anniversary of that. And then we have the Book of the Soul, 52 Paths to Living What Matters, another best-selling book. When did this one come out?
That just came out this past May. This
Okay,
past May.
this year,
And that book,
2020.
yeah, yeah. And that book, Michael, is you know, each book is a teacher for me. I write about you know, what I need to know, not what I already know, which is why I'm blessed to be prolific, because there's a lot I don't know.
I like that. I like that.
And so that,
That's
you
like
know,
that's like
the
how I speak. That's how I speak at times too. I'll think about something I need to really have a deeper understanding of, and I just throw myself open for it to teach me.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
share that. That's
yeah.
the creative process, is one of being in conversation with life, and the words are the trail of that inquiry. And this book for me was, it was interesting. The metaphor that let me into this book is that is the metaphor of actual birth. You know, we're all here because of the courage of our mothers. You know, I remember, my mother's gone now, but I remember I was in college and I had seen as a freshman, there was a documentary about childbirth, and they showed, you know, a mother going through labor, long labor. I went out of that campus union and I called my mother up. I said, "Oh my God, thank you," and you know, and but the metaphor of it is that once we're here, we enter a second labor, which is the experience of a lifetime through which the soul is birthed on earth.
Right.
That's the life of transformation that includes everything we've been talking about and more. And so this book tries to just kind of, as I do with all my books, kind of point up the choice points, the passageways that we all that we all encounter, though no one, I have no answers. All that I share are examples, not instructions. And but together we can help each other. We can be teachers for each other.
Absolutely. For those of you just tuning in, we're talking about the Book of Soul, 52 Paths to Living What Matters. And just came out this year, May 2020. So I would invite you to get that. If you never got the first book, the Book of Awakening, that's in the process of a 20-year anniversary, that's a good place to start too, to come into the heart of Mark Nepo, who has a very powerful story, but a powerful living. So I appreciate what you just said about birth. I think when people have birthdays, I always say to them, "Happy Appearance Day," but call your mother up because it was her birthday. She appeared, even if she's on the other side of the veil or this side of the veil. Give great thanks to Mom because she gave birth. It's her birthday actually, and it's your appearance day. So
Which is such
I
a model of courage, love and courage, love as courage. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think about that because my mother was, I think, 18 or 19 when she had me. She's
Wow.
gone on as well, and born at a time in which there weren't any necessarily women's rights, so to speak. And she became an individual that learned to drive, went to school, became a director in the city of Inglewood of major departments, social activist, civil rights activist. I mean, she became so much in her lifetime, being born at a time where women were kind of, not embraced in that way. And of course, my dad also nurtured that whole spirit within her as well. So it was a great thing for me to see growing up that they were married 60 years.
Wow.
And, my mother passed before him, and my father, who became a judge, then passed a couple of years ago.
Oh, well, I'm sorry you've lost them. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're with me, and but they were really, really good examples of a lot of things that we're talking about today, though they may not have used our language. But the whole, my father was, he just believed that you could do what you wanted to do. You just didn't give up, and you just did it, and my mother was very intuitive, so she kind of flowed in a different kind of way, and together they were good examples of intuition and hard work.
Yeah. 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 My father was a master woodworker, and it's so interesting. He was very creative. He built all kinds of things, built everything in our home. And when we were kids, he was in the Navy and he loved the sea, and he built a 30-foot sailboat that I really spent my first real experience of God in solitude was sitting as a boy on the bow of that boat just for hours.
Wow.
And it's interesting, Michael, that now that he's gone about 6 or 7 years, and the lessons, things that happen between us that I never thought about, but have such deep lessons now.
Yeah.
He wouldn't talk this way, the way we're talking. That wasn't
Right.
his, right. But I learned I mean, it's so interesting that my creativity, he had a shop in his basement, and he had like 6 vices, and everyone was always filled with a project. He worked on 6 things at once. He'd sand this, then he'd go chisel that, and then he'd go put this together. He never talked about it. And I just watched him. Well, all these years later, after 22 books, that's how I work on books. I work on several books that they kind of cross-pollinate. I'll work here for a while, then I'll work here for a few weeks, and then when one takes over, I follow it till it's done. But isn't that incredible after all those years?
Yeah. The older we get, the smarter they become.
Yeah. Yeah. Great quote by Mark Twain. He said, when I was 14, I couldn't believe how stupid my father was. But when I was 21, I was amazed at how much he had learned.
How much you had learned, right? Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying. I remember, like, my dad, I have 2 other brothers, so he was raising 3 kids, and he was a probation officer. And then one day, I guess he went to a high school reunion or something to that effect, and his a lot of his friends go on and do things that he thought should be able to do. So he came back home and he enrolled in law school. He got into law school. And all of his friends said, Beck, what are you doing? You got 2 kids, you got a wife at home. You're too old to go to law school, you know? And they soon became non-friends. And I remember he was the oldest person in his class at law school.
Wow.
Failed the bar the first time, failed the bar the second time, third time he got it, had a nice law practice, and then became a judge towards the later part of his life. And people used to say, you know, to call him Beck, you know, you've raised these 3 kids, your wife has gone on to do great things. You know, how did you do this, raising 3 kids and going, you're a probation officer and now you're retiring as a judge. And he would say, you just do what you say you're going to do. That's all. He said, it's not magic. He said, you just put one foot in front of the other, obstacles come up, you embrace them and you keep on going. He said, this is not magic. I just did what I said I was going to do. You know, and it really taught me a lot. You know, just do what you say you're going to do to the best of your ability, and then grace happens. You know,
that's a great wisdom. That's great wisdom. Yeah.
And we're going to talk. And I'm going to let people know that this is kind of a part 1 of our conversation because of the limited time we have on the IG Live situation. And the next part of our conversation, they'll be able to find on my app. Most people, if you don't have my app, just go to michaelbbeckwith.tv, download the app, and then go to the App Store, Beckwith Inspires, and this will be one of the offerings that will be on the app. But let me ask you this before we end this portion of it. With everything that's going on now, you know, Black Lives Matter, justice, injustice, COVID-19, the energy of fires, and you know, what would you offer, just out of your heart right now, to those who are listening to us?
Well, I think the thing that comes to me so deeply is that we are more together than alone, and we need to have the courage to reach out to each other, to be each other's teacher, to be each other's company. There's a small poem of mine, Michael, that goes like this: the mystery is that whoever shows up when we dare to give has exactly what we need hidden in their trouble.
Mm-hmm. Say that again. That's very powerful. Say it again.
The mystery is that whoever shows up when we dare to give has exactly what we need hidden in their trouble.
That's so true.
And
That's
so,
so
you know,
true.
we have to have the quiet courages of not to be afraid to reach out. Not, you know, I have found through my life, there's nothing wrong with working for what we want. That beautiful story about your father, you know. And I have found that often working for what I want has been an apprenticeship for working with what I'm given.
Yeah.
That's where it's like we practice our gifts working for what we want, and the greatness of the soul shows up when we're asked to work with what we're given.
Right. That's where creativity is.
Yeah.
Basically taking what you have and doing something extraordinarily with it, rather than complaining about what you don't have. Taking what you do have and allowing the extraordinary to emerge from that. It's like we're invited to be social artists, so to speak, in all the different areas of our life. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, social artist, absolutely. Yeah, working with each other to create community. And you know, this metaphor comes to me too, has been with me, that, you know, if in a physical body, you know, if we have one more healthy cell than toxic, we're considered healthy, though we want a lot more. Well, if we look at humanity as a global body, every soul is a cell in that body. And when we do service, when we listen, when we love, when we do authentic inner work, just making ourselves more whole and closer to spirit, we are making humanity one more healthy soul in the global body. And we need every healthy soul we can get right now.
Right. We become the healthy cell in the in the body of humanity.
Yes, yes.
Well, that's beautiful. Mark, thank you so much for being with me today. Um, very shortly, we'll be entering into part 2, in which I want to go a little bit more into the Book of Soul that just got released, and mine some gold, some platinum, some gifts from this particular book as well. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Um, we'll see you shortly. You know, I'm here every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Pacific time, having a conversation with people such as Mark Nepo. Mark, thank you so much.
Oh, it's a joy. It's a joy, Michael.
Talk to you shortly. So everyone, that was Mark Nepo, the Book of Awakening, 20th anniversary, the Book of the Soul, 52 Paths to Living What Matters. I want you to have a bright day. Obviously, tune in to Agape on Sunday. 6:45 a.m. is the Way of Meditation service that I give a brief Dharma talk and we practice meditation. And then at 9 and 11:30, we have the 2 other services that carry the message and the music, preceded by a half hour of meditation at 8:30 and at 11. So looking forward to seeing you there. Have a bright day. Mark, we'll talk shortly.
If you want another awesome video in our Black Excellence series, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.